I was elected president-elect in the early 90s and went through the 3-year cycle. And that was at a time when ISPE was doing the transition to having a professional management organization. Stan and Carol Edlovich had really brought this up as their own real object of love and devotion, and had done essentially all the administrative work for a long time. The society was getting to be big enough that there was a lot to do, and there were many stakeholders, and it really just couldn't be run as a mom and pop operation anymore, and it needed to have a more formalized reporting structure and planning and decision making. And we were also, at that time, moving towards being a genuine international society, or we had moved. And that involved another layer of complexity and communication. So there was a transition period during the time that I was president, as we did move from one model to the other, which gave us a lot of opportunity to think about how we really wanted to run things.
But what was really important at that moment, that we had that management structure change, and that was quite a revolutionary, part, because, actually, and with all the credits to Stan and family, it started as a Papa Mom shop, and then when the society, became more mature and went also to a bigger picture, etc. Well, there was, of course, the need for more a professional, guidance, etc. And that was done before I became president. So other people did a wonderful job there to involve Mark Epstein with his group, and that's still we have the picture of today.
That was a huge transition, moving to the new way of submitting abstracts and also having the concurrent workshops. The abstract deadline is always in February. I was getting extremely nervous because nobody was telling me how the abstract submissions was going to work. So I started calling about my colleagues and friends and explaining the situation and saying, could you please put together with colleagues of yours workshops? And so I started asking for workshops, and people were very supportive. They understood immediately the situation, and they prepared a fantastic list of workshops. Of course, by the end of the year, then we had an abstract submission system. So in February, we had both the abstracts and the workshops. So that's when the current layout of concurrent workshops started, and I remember being in my living room on the carpet trying to figure out how to set up the workshops without competing speakers overlay and this kind of things. So, but
I also remember the tipping point, as you might call it, when the number of abstracts submitted exceeded the time slots available. And I remember a couple people who were concerned about that. And I thought, this is the healthiest sign of a good society that there can possibly be. When you can reject, or you have to reject, a significant proportion, it means that there's a huge level of interest, and you're going to wind up, ideally, with the best quality presentations. And from that, everybody learns.
I think I served on the board between 1999 and 2002. So there was intense discussion within the board with regards to, to what extent we want to embrace risk management. And there was debate on whether we want to just simply focus on the very traditional science of pharmacoepidemiology, which is more of a safety science, studying between the association between A and B, or like every other discipline in epidemiology does. So this is a drug, and then there's an adverse effect. So some would suggest that we stick to our core competency. But then but some others recognize that that's not all public health is about. Not just evaluating the strength of association between a drug and an adverse outcome, but also how that potential impact could be mitigated, through some regulatory action or through some activities. And then, of course, now we call those activities risk management.
I love what ISPE is now doing with special interest groups. They emerged on my watch when I was active in the policy committee of ISPE and chair of the bylaws and policies committee, because I felt so strongly that there were special interests and they needed their own discussion forums, and we're doing the right thing with them. We don't yet have a good way to harness the outputs of those special interest groups and couple them into our continuing learning.
The six started evolving, and the first six drug utilization, but also a very active vaccines, the pregnancy SIG, which is probably one of the one that is being active to the extreme. And now we have a very large number of SIGs, and I think that's a tribute to people organizing together, because that's one method by which a section in the field that is not very visible in the program can work during the conference to set up workshops or work on abstract for the next conference. So I think that's been a mechanism that has worked very well for certain parts of the field, such as also biologics or devices that otherwise would have not so much space in the program.
FISPE was my idea, and the idea was to make more money for ISPE, because initially it was twice the registration fee. I think that's been dropped now, but that was to try and get a cadre of people who are going to be long-term ISPE supporters who had demonstrated that they really wanted this society to thrive, and making them into FISPE recognized that they had done a lot for the society. So you can blame me for that.
In the more recent years, my major involvement has been with the Global Development Committee, because coming from Asia, but having worked in the States for so many years, I do recognize that there are scientific and public health needs outside of the Western Europe and North American region. So the Global Development Committee, there's a group of committed members who would like to expand the activities in other parts of the world. And over the last 8 to 9 years, we have been doing that in the Asia Pacific region. Started with the Asia Pharmacoepidemiology meeting, has been going on annually for the almost last 10 years, and kind of rotated through several Asian countries. And through that, interested parties could attend the activities that they may not usually attend the annual meeting, which is usually take place in Western Europe or North America. So I think we serve a certain segment of the public health need in that part of the world. And of course, we would love to see the activity goes beyond Asia Pacific, like Central Europe or South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Latin America. If that happened, then I think the society will become more of a truly global international society.
I found it terrific to put a poster up and have really hard-headed people coming and taking a look at it and saying, you didn't think of this, this and this, and why didn't you do that? And sometimes there were reasons, and sometimes I just didn't realise. And that kind of science is, that kind of communication is extremely powerful.
I think at heart we are all public health professionals. We want to do good for the society. I do keep saying that this provides a neutral platform for the public health-minded professionals who has a strong interest in drug safety. Regardless whether you work in academia or private sector or regulatory agency, and there's a common goal is to improve public health.
Professionally, I really feel that being involved with the early conferences in ISPE has rounded me off. It's taught me so much year to year in terms of ways to do things at work that create new efficiencies, and also stronger methods, paying attention to the best methodologies, because I think that really is the essence of our success as a society.
Well, I guess personally the best thing is the friends, the contacts, the opportunity to see people year after year. Ours was a field in the early 80s, as I alluded to, that there were just 3 groups that didn't really like each other or talk to each other much. And what's nice is ISPE has allowed the subsequent generations of pharmacoepi to get past that. And great people enjoy being with each other, enjoy interacting across countries, enjoy and across institutions. The rivalries that used to be there have sort of, it's really matured the field enormously with that.
ISPE has really helped to support the development of the underlying science, particularly the statistical, the mathematical, the approach to using everything from existing data to developing. There have been people involved that suggested simple clinical trials at one point, but various approaches to how we collect data, how we interpret data, and how we use existing data resources. I think ISPE's had a major contribution to bringing people together and helping to support the science behind assessment and evaluation.
ISPE really has become the gold standard for the organization that sets the tone for the best science in methodology, in specific medication risk relationship research.
What we discovered was that pharmacoepidemiology is probably viewed differently in the industry, pharmaceutical industry sponsors, and viewed differently in the regulatory agencies, and viewed differently in academia. In the 90s, I served on NIH epidemiology study section, and they really didn't know about pharmacoepidemiology. So clearly academia didn't have a good appreciation of that. Now you come to an ISPE meeting and you will have a whole roundtable of many academic institutions that are now offering courses in pharmacoepidemiology. And for example, I teach in one at University of Michigan each summer. So I think that this is another accomplishment to begin to get adoption of pharmacoepidemiology as a discipline. I think the society has seen itself as a voice in providing input to policy, and certainly has contributed substantively to the good pharmacoepidemiology practices standards.
Give the field coherence by offering a forum where people of different interests, whether it be mathematical or pharmacological or even sociological, could come together and talk around an issue of unquestionable public health importance, which was the safety of pharmaceuticals. I think that ISPE's focus on drug safety and on the management of risks around first drug treatment and now medical products treatment has been its real strength. That the purpose of each of the groups that come in, of each of the papers that are presented, and of each of the addresses can be measured against some clear standard of whether or not in the end it advances safe use of drugs.
If you look into innovation, it's an incremental innovation. It becomes better and better at the time, but it doesn't go fast. So you cannot compare the infrastructure we have in the different countries now with 25 years ago, but in fact it's the same. It's the difference between a flat screen TV and a non-flat screen display. They are both TVs, and of course you never want to have that old TV, that cathode, what is it, that old TV, you want to have that LED screen TV. But that's the same is happening in our society. It progresses, but slowly, but it's improving all the time.
Drug effects, evaluating of drug effects, understanding drug effects, and also, building evidence for making the best decision out of that will become more and more important. And ISPE is the society that brings all these features and all these, domains together.
So here's my bottom line for the future of ISPE. First, it is learn from the past. I was disquieted by a member who said, he was just making smoke at a meeting. And he said, we need to look forward. We're not going to look back. Well, that's so wrong. If we don't look back, we'll never get the future right. So my first loving recommendation is ISPE needs to learn from our history and the history of the field and build history into our annual meetings and not forget that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, plus you, and we need to remember it and learn from those lessons and not forget them. And we're doing it, but we have a long way to go to do it right. This videotaping that we're doing is the first of many steps that we need to do to get history right. Second is to stay the course. It's fine for us to say, well, that's then, we've done that, now we need to move on to new things. But in fact, we need to do the old things right and keep on doing them. That is to say, ISPE is on the right course with a balance of education, advancing of science, advancing of resources, and advancing of the infrastructure to deliver. But we can't let go of any of those or we'll slide back. I'm particularly worried about the need for us to preserve our academic infrastructure. It's hard to make a living as an epidemiologist in academia around the world, and the sector won't succeed without having world-class, properly trained epidemiologists in academia. The third way forward, though, is to be a learning organization. We need to learn from what we're doing so that we do it better. We need to take our best practices and advance them.
Go for it. Take part, become part of ISPE. ISPE is important and it needs new blood coming in with new ideas to take it on to the next stage. But I hope that the young blood keeps it with the same ethos. It's always been a three-part society: academia, regulatory, industry and service providers, with all of them being equals. It's also been a friendly society. And I think that those are key to ensuring that you get good science and good camaraderie.
It feels large now, so I think trying to maintain that sense of intimacy in terms of programming and stimulating interaction is something I would like to see happen.
There are some elements that I think make the society work. There are people who come to this conference who are epidemiologists rather than pharmacoepidemiologists because the environment is just so positive. And I think that no matter what comes up as key issues in the conference, and it will move to different methodologies, different data, different issues, I think if they can keep the personality of the society, then that will allow it to go forward in the best possible way.
Don't forget the two parts in the word. Pharmacoepi is pharmaco and epi. It's not a subgroup of epi, it's not only a subgroup of pharmaco, it's the juncture of both. And if you forget that there's both, then you're not going in the right direction.